The U.S. and Iran traded strikes in Strait of Hormuz, threatening to unravel an already fragile truce. Now, President Trump has insisted the ceasefire remains in effect. The U.S. military says American forces carried out strikes on Iranian military targets on Thursday after what it described as an attack on 3 U.S. destroyers operating in the strait. According to U.S. Central Command, Iranian forces launched missiles, drones, and small boats towards the vessels. CENTCOM said none of the destroyers were hit, and it intercepted incoming threats before targeting Iranian military facilities responsible for the attack. Iran, however, has rejected the U.S. account. The Iran's Central Military Command accused Washington of violating the ceasefire, first by attacking an oil tanker and another ship earlier in the day. Iranian officials said their forces responded immediately by targeting American military vessels. A spokesperson for Iran's armed forces also claimed that U.S. strikes hit civilian areas. President Donald Trump addressed the confrontation on social media, saying U.S. forces caused great damage to Iranian targets. Trump also warned that future responses would be harder and more violent if, and I'm quoting right here, they don't get their deal signed fast. Now, at the same time, the president maintained that a ceasefire arrangement is still active.
They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran.
Now, the renewed tensions come amid continuing disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil shipping routes. The International Maritime Organization says around 1,500 ships and 20,000 international crew members are currently stranded in the Gulf region because of the conflict. Well, President Trump briefly authorized a naval operation earlier this week aimed at reopening the strait to commercial shipping before suspending the effort. At the United Nations, U.S. urged countries to support its resolution demanding Iran to halt attacks and mining of the Strait of Hormuz, but diplomats said China and Russia are likely to veto it. A Chinese veto would be awkward ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's trip to China next week, where the Iran war is likely to be on the agenda.
This should be a simple demand: the removal of mines from an international waterway, that you cannot exact illegal tolls. We have to address these violations here in the Council, and we have to ask ourselves, if a country chooses to oppose such a simple proposition, do they really want peace?
Iran, on the other hand, defended its actions, saying it is acting in accordance with international law in the Strait of Hormuz and accuses the U.S. of playing a destabilizing role in the region.
Again, let me stress clearly, Iran remains fully prepared to resolve normal maritime traffic and ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, provided that the war is permanently ended and the unlawful blockade is lifted. Iran's action in the...
All right, to give us more on this, our correspondent Susan Terani sent us a report from New York. Let's listen in.
The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations stood alongside ambassadors from several Gulf countries on Thursday as Washington pushed a new Security Council resolution accusing Iran of threatening global shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Ambassador Mike Waltz said that the U.S. drafted the resolution with Bahrain and warned that freedom of navigation is, quote unquote, a cornerstone of worldwide stability and commerce. The diplomatic push comes as the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have lifted restrictions on U.S. military access to their bases as well as their airspace, a major development that could allow the Trump administration to once again start Project Freedom. But despite growing Gulf backing for Washington, the UN resolution still faces obstacles from China and Russia, which vetoed a similar resolution regarding the Strait of Hormuz last month. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has condemned the proposal as being one-sided and provocative. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.